It's water towers. Think about it for a second. Out of 61 towers that we have in the game, only 3 of them can be placed in water. That's just absurd. So today, I'm going to talk about how the water mechanic was implemented, its place in the meta, and how it was destined to be forgotten. Let's begin. So the original water tower in TDX was the petrol boat, which at the time was designed to be an all-rounder tower. It was decent at the early game, mid-game and late game as well. It had a bit less DPS compared to its current stats, but with its bottom pad's burn and crowd control capabilities, and the top pad's high range, and the lack of DPS towers, petrol boats filled a decent niche. At the time, only DPS option we had was the Juggernaut, which costed a lot to unlock, was pricier than the petrol boat, and with it only having single target DPS, petrol boat was like a better Juggernaut, but with the downside of being map specific with being water only. Back in the day, there were also less maps, being only 15, and 7 of those maps had water, with 6 of them being suitable for petrol boat. And besides that, the hard difficulty maps such as Obscure Island, and more importantly, Secret Forest. The only impossible map at the time, Deserted Island, was also mostly water, thus allowing petrol boat to be useful. So focusing on the points I made here, a lot of maps allowed water towers to be placed in them. Maps that were good to grind had water, and with the lack of towers, petrol boat filled a good niche. Now for the second water tower in TDX, Warship. Things went a lot differently. Unlike the petrol boat, the size of the warship is immense, and for that reason, it was way more limited compared to the petrol boat placement-wise. Warship had significantly higher DPS than the petrol boat. Hell, any tower if you think about it. And unlike petrol boat, where you picked it cause it was convenient, you picked warship cause of its strength and built your deck around it. Now with the huge size of warship, the maps were a lot more limited, and the only usable maps were, and still are, Coastal Defense, Fort Summit, Oil Rig, Research Base, Treasure Cove, Misleading Pond, Secret Forest, Survival 202, and Deserted Island, with in total being 9 maps. With the viability of the maps changing from map to map, the only maps where Warship is frequently used are Oil Rig and Research Base. Now this creates a problem. Unlike Petrol Boat, where there were a lot of maps it can be used in, Warship is really map dependent. There arises another problem as well, with Warship's balanced around the maps. With its release, Oil Rig's difficulty was originally set to easy, and in my humble opinion, easy really fits Oil Rig. By its design, Oil Rig is filled with a bunch of obstacles, so it only has around 3 viable spots to place your towers in. But with Oil Rig being one of the only maps that Warship can be placed in, and Oil Rig being a fairly long map, the difficulty has been changed from easy to simple, nerfing its gold gain by 5% and XP gain by 10. So just because one tower was good in a map, the map got nerfed, thus affecting all towers and general the viability of the map. On top of this, because Warship is only viable in 2 maps, it could not be balanced as a normal tower. If Warship was as powerful as any other tower, the entire viability of the tower wouldn't exist, because all towers are viable in all maps, so limiting Warship to only 2 would have killed its viability, and because of this, Warship was made to be significantly more viable than any other tower. This overall isn't a good way of balancing, because it makes Warship extremely limited to being a one-trick pony. With its modern balancing, Warship, although being powerful, is extremely limited to only be used in 2 maps. This also affects map design in a way so maps don't have water spots. With Warship's balance, it has to be really powerful, and for that reason, if any map has water spots, there is the possibility that the game will be cheesed by Warship. You can see this take effect on Nightmare mode. Nightmare can't be played on any map, and has 5 special maps to be played in. Out of those 5 maps, only 1 map has water spots, and consequentially, that map is the shortest one, and it's really difficult to make Warship less viable. And on events as well, practically no event allows water spots, thus limiting Warship's usage. Returning to Petrol Boat. Unlike Warship's situation, with things being really tangled up and difficult to fix, Petrol Boat just slowly phased out. At the game's release, it was viable, yes, because it filled the niche of being a decent DPS option who also has good crowd control capabilities. But over time, more and more towers were released, and as of now, we have a lot of really good DPS towers, a lot of good splash towers, and all of these towers can be used in all maps. And unlike Warship, Petrol Boat isn't something so good that maps are shaped around it. Petrol Boat is, I would say, around the C tier tower at most. So to use a tower that is all around mid, you need to play at very specific maps, and that makes the tower not viable, thus phasing out the meta. So in the end, both water towers suffer from two different problems, which causes the towers to fail in their own specific way. And honestly, I don't really see a way the devs would make these towers fit in. There are two specific things that they could do to make these towers viable, and those are nerfing Warship to make it as powerful as an average tower, buffing Petrol Boat to be a pretty decent DPS crowd control option like it used to be back then, and rework a lot of maps to add water spots to them. With this way, both these towers could work pretty well, and in Warship's case, this could make Warship properly balanced, since adding huge waters along the edges of the maps are possible and reasonable to do. But for Petrol Boat, I don't really think so. Unlike Warship, Petrol Boat needs to be relatively close to the path and the enemies to function. So for it to have more placements, a lot of maps need water patches, which although in Warship's case could be added since edges don't interfere with the map itself, the water patches inside the map will affect other tower placements. Though perhaps they could pull some BTD6 and make Petrol Boat be placed anywhere with having its own water puddle under it. But I'm not sure if that'll be too goofy for TDX. And for one last thing, the devs practically forgot these towers' existence. Warship's balance changes that it received over the years are really minimal in impact, and practically the only real change it got is the bottom path gaining stealth, which mind you is pretty recent. And for Petrol Boat, besides a little buff it received like a year ago, it hasn't been changed, like at all. Also with each update, we have been getting a bunch of skins for all towers, but for Warship we only have one skin, being the 4th of July one, which is only a recolor and nothing else, which also has been released 2 years ago. And for Petrol Boat, it has two skins, one being for Christmas, being a recolor, released 3 years ago, and one being an actual good skin, being the Pirate, released about a year ago. So overall, although all towers receiving skins left and right, with most towers having tens of skins, Petrol Boat only has 2, and Warship only has 1. So water towers as a mechanic seems to be forgotten. Notice how I didn't mention Golden Warship by the way, since this is just an amplified version of everything I talked about regular Warship. And yeah, although things could be done about the problem, I really doubt they'll make anything out of it, since the problem, although being significant, only covering 2 towers. So that was it. But before I go, as I've been mentioning in my last 2 videos, I'll be doing a Q&A upon reaching 1000 subs. So if you have any questions, make sure to ask me them by saying, for Q&A, then your question. And with that, I was your host HD, and thanks for watching.